Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles, your favorite true crime podcast. I am Donnie, and with me is a man that doesn't understand beer koozies, because that's not how beer drinking works. It's Dale.
Nah, if you need something to keep your beer cold for 8 hours, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
It's like all those cups. You keep your drink cold for 8 hours.
Especially beer.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to keep it for an hour.
No. You just keep it to the bottom.
Yeah, just one right after the other.
That's right.
Just go to the fridge or the cooler and
turn it up.
That's it. What's going on, dude?
Oh, you, man.
No, not me.
Same old, same old.
I'm just struggling to get by.
We're getting it on, ain't we?
We are. We're doing it right.
We opened early and knocking it out.
Opened early. We did open early today.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we have some good news today.
We have some good news. Bring it on, dude.
Hey, how about that?
Oh, man.
First of all, we would like to say thank you so much to our buddy. If they quit clapping, we'd like to say thanks so much to our buddy Chris Wanick. He sent us a PayPal donation, and with the tagline, "It's really getting hot," figured it was time for some ice cold beer money. Y'all rock.
Chris, you rock, dude.
Man, we really appreciate that. Thanks so much for dropping that in.
Chris has been a friend of the show for quite a while.
Long time.
He supports us and tells everybody about us.
He does.
Yeah.
He's a great dude, made videos, all kinds of stuff. Cool stuff, dude.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to say...
We got all kinds of clap.
You clap it up, ain't you? Anyway, we have a Apple Podcast 5-star review coming in today. This is from HST 2022. Says, love this show. I love this show. I've been listening since the beginning, and they never get old. They put on a funny spin on true crime that can't be beat.
Man.
I listen on Patreon, but I wanted to come over and give an Apple 5-star rating.
That's dedication right there, dude.
Dude, how about that?
I love it.
Amazing. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much for taking the time. Thanks so much for being a Patreon. Everything is overly appreciated, and I mean, it's just awesome.
Yep. Yeah, you can get our episodes on Patreon early and ad-free.
That's right.
And if you don't want to go that route, commit to the monthly thing, you can do like Chris Wanick did and just contribute a one-time contribution over on the PayPal, and it really does help.
It does.
And you can leave an Apple 5-star review.
That does help.
It does, man. And just telling a friend about us.
That helps.
It really does. I think you told some people this week is asking about some shirts you were wearing or something.
I sure did. Gave out a couple stickers and some little business cards. It has a QR code on it, so you can find us and everything about us.
That's right.
Yeah, a couple different places actually. I stopped at. Actually, it was yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, people love it, man. Once they find us, they stick with us.
And we appreciate that, man. It makes you feel good.
It
Makes
really does.
For doing it, man. Because
Yeah.
it ain't like we're making no money or nothing. We're just having a good time.
We do it. We love telling these stories and getting these stories out there for you guys and give you something to listen to. And
that's right.
Yeah, it just it's a win-win for everybody.
That's right.
Yeah,
we enjoy it. It's fun, and we enjoy you guys, and super appreciative of you.
Yeah, we are. All right, dude. We're gonna get going in this episode.
So much for happy talk.
Yeah,
we're back into the
back in the
van.
Yeah, back in the van. But you remember last week on part 1, we was talking about Bill Bonin, and we ended up talking about Bill Bonin and Vernon Butts. They abducted a 15-year-old Donald Ray Hayden in Santa Monica and beaten, tortured him, and threw him out on the Ventura Freeway. And it was pretty bad scene, dude.
Pretty rough, man. So
starting back on this episode, we just wanted to recap where we were left off at.
Yeah.
But we're going up to September the 9th of 1979.
Right. Man, it's kind of crazy how this stuff works, and you kind of seem to see it a lot, how they all start out and what forms these folks, and then stuff happens, and then it seems like they all have 2 or 3 chances they get picked up or they get this, and then they're dropped off. Like this guy was in the military, and then he did some kidnapping and had some sex with underage folks, and then he got very little time for that, and he's right back out. It's just crazy. It all sounds familiar when we do these stories, how stuff happens and everything just starts unfolding to this, and we get where we are today.
Yeah, just a continuous thing.
Yeah. It's sad, really.
It really is.
Because it seems like everyone we done could have been stopped in the very, very early stages, but it's like, oh, he's fine, let him go.
Well, I think in today's time they're probably doing better at that, but they didn't understand exactly how these guys work and how their minds work.
Oh yeah, 100% today is a lot different.
Yeah,
because everybody's connected and everybody knows what's going on with everybody, and very little. Well, I won't say very little, but there's probably not near as much clerical error and that kind of stuff going on where they lose paperwork or everybody's tied to everybody now.
Yeah, probably back then too. You had some law enforcement agencies that had a little bit of pride and they didn't want to give up information. And
Yeah, didn't want to share.
Yeah.
Right, because they wanted the credit if the stuff went down.
Yeah, I think law enforcement does better now communicating and,
Oh, 100%.
you know, and
100%.
the camaraderie they have between law enforcement agencies. There's a lot more support.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's not a bunch of credit hogs, basically.
Exactly.
Share the info and let's get this thing done.
It's all about the victims,
Right.
finding justice
Yes,
for them.
there you go.
But we're moving up to September the 9th of 1979. And this is when Bill Bonin and Vernon Butts,
These names, dude.
yeah, that's when they encountered a 17-year-old boy from La Miranda. And his name was David Louis Murillo.
Mm-hmm.
And he was riding on his bicycle.
He was.
And Murillo, he got in the van. They enticed him into the van.
Yeah, they offered him some money,
Yes.
which he refused.
Yeah.
I don't know why he got in the van anyway, but
He got in the van.
he must have gotten in the van, then they offered him money.
And they could have got him in the van, offered drugs or something.
Yeah,
Because
no
that was a pretty big thing for them to do.
Right.
But that's when he was attempted to be fondled.
Mm-hmm.
Before he was bound and drove to Vernon Butts' residence.
Yeah.
And as Vernon Butts was driving the van, Bonin sexually assaulted him and raped him.
Mm.
Yeah,
They tagged off.
Yeah, he then traded places with Vernon Butts, who performed oral sex on him and beat him.
Mm.
And then they parked the vehicle, bound him, and raped him some more.
Good Lord.
And he was pretty extensively bludgeoned and then strangled.
The mindset of these guys
I know.
it's just overwhelming.
And his body was discovered along the Highway 101, and this was on the 12th of September,
Mm-hmm.
just a few days later. But now, what's crazy is Bill Bonin was not known to have killed again until around November the 1st. So I guess, I don't know if he took some time off or what, or just didn't reveal what he'd done.
Right. Took time off for Halloween or something.
That couple months' time. But that's when him and Vernon Butts, they abducted and murdered unidentified young man. He had brown hair, and Bill Bonin later claimed that he was about 5'6" tall and around 18 years old. And at some point, Dale, Bonin allegedly told the man that his folks had paid him to find him and kill him.
Good Lord.
Yeah, that's just
It's just now these psychological stuff.
yeah. Can you imagine the horror on this kid's face?
No.
But the two guys, they beat him, and Bonin strangled him to death before sticking an ice pick into his head.
Yeah, dang, dude.
Yeah. And his body was discarded along State Route 99, just south of Bakersfield, California.
So it seems like they're kind of getting bored with the same old. Now they're starting to do a little
Yeah,
more.
it does seem like they're just ramping up a little
Yeah.
bit more. There's
A
more.
little more torture tactics coming in here.
Yeah.
Or just over the top violence.
And by the end of the month, on November 30th, Bill Bonin went out on his own. And that's when he abducted a 17-year-old. His name was Frank Dennis Fox from Bellflower. And Bill Bonin sodomized him and strangled him till he was dead. And his body was found just 2 days later along the Ortega Highway. It was about 5 miles east of San Juan Capistrano. And his body had signs of binding and blunt force trauma, and no clothing or other identifying evidence was discovered at the scene.
He's pretty good at not leaving much evidence.
He is. He's getting away with it.
Yeah.
Now, just 10 days later, less than 2 weeks, man,
Yeah.
there was a 15-year-old boy from Long Beach, California. His name was John Frederick Kilpatrick. He left his home and was offered money for sexual services from Bill Bonin. And after engaging in mutual oral sex, Kilpatrick was bound and raped by Bill Bonin before being transported back to his parents' house, where he was strangled to death. But his body was discarded near Rialto, and it was found on December the 13th. But Kilpatrick remained known as a John Doe until August of 1980.
Way later.
Yeah, almost a year later. But because of his troubled background, which caused him to disappear for days, he'd get gone. His family would just say he'd just disappear and wouldn't say anywhere he was going or anything.
Right. It's kind of a normal thing for him to just be gone for a while.
And his mother, she hesitated to report him as a disappearance. And his friends also, they mistakenly report him.
That they saw him at the mall.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was definitely not him.
Yeah, it wasn't him. But as a result, he was not reported missing until that next February.
Wow.
So we're moving into the next year of 1980. And this was on January the 1st.
Man, he's just stacking them up.
New Year's Day, 1980. And Bill Bonin, that's when he encountered a 16-year-old Ontario boy. His name was Michael Francis McDonald, near the Chino airport. And this was under the guise of providing drugs for him to sell. And Bonin parked the van behind an apartment building. And in the van, Bonin beat, bound, and raped him. And his body was found along the Highway 71.
So he told him he's going to give him some drugs for him to sell for him.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And his body was found on the outskirts of Chino. Then his body wasn't identified until March the 24th. So it was just 3 months later when he was identified, yeah. So on the morning of February the 3rd,
About
just
a month later, yeah.
Bill Bonin invited a 16-year-old boy to his parents' house to drink beer and have sex.
Come on over.
And this is when Bill Bonin allegedly caught him stealing $100 from his wallet.
Yeah, he said that they had already done some stuff, and then Bill had got up and go to the bathroom or whatever, and he come back and then supposedly caught him stealing his money.
Yes.
Which is not a good thing.
Nope, not a good thing at all. And he resolved to commit murder.
Furiously.
Yeah, and later that evening, drove to Hollywood with Gregory Miley that we talked about, with the specific intention of committing a murder with him.
Come on out, let's go.
Yeah, and that's when they met up with a 15-year-old. His name was Charles Miranda, near the Starwood nightclub. This is along the Santa Monica Boulevard. And according to Miley, Bill Bonin and Miranda had consensual sex in the van as he was driving. And Bonin then told Miley that Miranda was going to die. And Miley asked why Bonin wouldn't just let him go. And Bonin replied, because he'll know us and he'll know the van.
Right.
And that's when Bonin beat, bound, and gagged Miranda.
Right. You remember before he said, no more witnesses, basically.
Nobody's leaving.
Yeah, nobody's telling on me anymore.
Yep, and he also informed him that he had to be killed due to his earlier robbery. Yeah, taking the money.
Yes.
And Miranda began begging for his life. Now, Bonin began sexually assaulting Miranda, and Miley unsuccessfully attempted to rape him. And in frustration, the two started physically assaulting him, and Bonin strangled him to death. And his body was later dumped in a Los Angeles alleyway.
Man, they just don't care, do they?
They don't.
Just kill and dump.
Now, it wasn't just 5 minutes after they got rid of the body. Bill Bonin suggested to Miley that they do another one.
Yeah, he said, I'm still horny. Let's go get another one.
Wow. Man, and Miley initially, he didn't want to do this.
No, he's like, no, I'd just rather go home.
But then eventually just went along with it.
Well, what are you going to do? You probably got that look from Bonin, and you didn't want to be in the back of the van, right?
No, you didn't want a rope around your neck either.
Right.
And it was just a few hours later in Huntington Beach, the two encountered a 12-year-old. His name was Michael McCobb. And McCobb had been dropped off at a corner bus stop by his older brother, who had given him some money to take to Disneyland.
Yes, money for the bus.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird. I don't know. He was 12, which I guess is still in the 80s, though. But here's just some money to take the bus to Disneyland. Was he going by himself?
I guess. I don't know.
Doesn't make sense to me.
No, but he was lured into Bill Bonin's van on the promise that he would be driven to Disneyland.
Yeah, and smoke some weed.
Yeah.
Come on in, man. We'll take you where you going.
We'll take care of you.
We got some weed.
Get you high and you can ride some rides.
Yeah.
And according to Miley, McCobb got in the van and Bill Bonin drove to a grocery store. And he parked the van and began hugging and kissing on McCobb.
Who's 12?
Yes. Before binding him and telling him that he was being kidnapped for ransom. And Bill Bonin began punching him as Miley drove around. Bill Bonin raped him and bludgeoned him with a tire iron.
Damn.
And Bill Bonin then forced him to sleep in his arms.
This dude.
Oh, man. And when McCobb woke up, Miley and Bonin beat him into unconsciousness. And Bonin crushed his neck with a tire iron.
What is going on in this guy's head?
I don't know, dude. And Bill Bonin then strangled McCobb to death. And he and Miley discarded the body at a construction site in Walnut, California.
He's discovered like 3 days later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they were working at construction site and found him.
Probably, yeah.
And the next day, Bill Bonin was arrested for violating the conditions of his parole.
Hmm.
And he was remanded in custody at the Orange County Jail until March the 4th. I don't really know what the conditions of his parole was.
Well, I'm sure he broke them. It don't matter what it was.
Yeah, but following his release, he was hired as a truck driver at the Dependable Drive-Away.
So how long was he in there? Do we know?
Well,
Couldn't have been long.
No,
'Cause he's right back going to work on the 14th.
Yeah, so probably just a couple weeks.
See, that's another thing right there. They had him right there.
Had him in custody, yeah. But as he was, working at this Dependable Drive-Away company,
Right.
Bonin angered his boss, who was unaware of his status of being a sex offender.
Right, and he was picking up hitchhikers. And one time he did it with him in the truck.
Yes.
That's what pissed him off.
Yeah,
He didn't know all this was going on.
I know.
And he also was taking long and unnecessary routes. It's like they was told one time like they would be several drivers go somewhere to pick up something, and a couple of them would all go the same way, but Bill always seemed to take his own route and go different ways.
Yeah.
Wonder why.
I wonder. So on March the 14th, Bill Bonin abducted 18-year-old Van Nuys man. His name was Ronald Gatlin. And again, Bonin beat and sodomized him and hacked him with an ice pick.
Yeah. Is this the one he hacked in the face?
Yes.
Yes.
And the following day, his body was found at an industrial building in Durate.
A damn ice pick.
I know, man. I can't even imagine that. Or any of this stuff.
I know, it's terrible.
Yep. And just a week later, 7 days later, on March the 21st, Bonin offered a ride to a 14-year-old hitchhiker. His name was Glenn Norman Barker. And Barker was beaten and raped with all kinds of objects. And then strangled with a ligature and burned with cigarettes. And his rectum had been distended.
You think?
Yeah.
Damn.
And later that day, 15-year-old Russell Dwayne Pugh was abducted in Garden Grove.
Later that day.
Yes.
So this is another
Two in one day.
Yeah.
His body was bound and beaten and strangled to death after being held for an estimated 8 hours of captivity.
God almighty.
And the two boys were discarded in the Cleveland National Forest. This was close to the Ortega Highway.
Right.
And they were found on the 23rd of March.
And 2 days later.
Yeah. Now, it was one Friday evening in March. Bonin offered 17-year-old William Ray Pugh. Yeah, you can't make these names up.
I know, William Ray Pugh.
Yeah. He offered him a ride home.
Yes.
Because they'd been at this Frazier's house. He was the guy, the neighbor of Bill Bonin.
That always had the parties.
Yeah, the older gay man, yeah.
Right.
But he'd offered him a ride home. And Pugh accepted the ride. And during this ride, Bonin asked him to have sex. And according to Pugh, he attempted to leave the van once Bonin had slowed down at a traffic light.
Yeah, apparently he didn't want to have sex.
I guess.
Right.
And that's when Bonin grabbed him and dragged him back inside the van and admitted to him that he enjoyed abducting and restraining and torturing hitchhikers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All that good stuff.
And Bonin then informed Pugh how to murder without getting caught.
Right. And the thing was, man, he got him. His intention was to kill this guy when he took him.
Yes.
But then he told him, he's like, well, people saw us leaving together at the party, so I guess I can't do that. So we'll just go do it together.
Yeah.
So he just kind of enlisted him without getting any permission. It's like, okay, well, I was going to kill you, but you can just go help me kill somebody else.
Yep. And that's when Pugh was driven to what he said was his home, and that's when he got out of the van and ran into the house. Yeah. But Pugh kept hanging out with Bonin. On March the 25th, Bonin and Pugh together, they abducted a 15-year-old runaway. His name was Harry Todd Turner, and this was there in Los Angeles. And Turner had escaped a boys' home in Lancaster 4 days earlier.
Bet he wish he hadn't.
Yeah, but at trial later that we'll get into, Pugh later testified that he and Bonin had lured Turner into Bonin's van with the offer of $20 for sex. After biting and sodomizing Turner, Bonin bit into his penis until it tore.
Ooh.
And then ordered Pugh to beat him up. And after Pugh bludgeoned and beat him, Bonin strangled him to death. His body was discarded behind the Los Angeles business.
Dang.
Yeah. So, like you said, it just keeps ramping up.
Yeah.
Now he's biting penises.
Biting and ice picking.
Yes. Now, on April the 10th, Bill Bonin was discharged from parole. I guess his parole time was up. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been such a good guy.
So he's going to go out and party. So he encountered a 16-year-old Bellflower guy. His name was Stephen John Wood, and he was walking to school. And Wood's older brother had actually introduced him to Bill Bonin. So he willingly got into Bonin's van.
Hey, buddy, we'll catch a ride.
And that's when he was hogtied, and his body was discarded in Long Beach alleyway there in town.
Yeah, right close to the Pacific Coast Highway.
Yeah.
So, you can kind of know what all happened there.
But Bonin allegedly waited till dark to get rid of the body.
He probably was riding around all day with it in the car.
Yeah. But Woods' autopsy revealed that he'd been killed by strangulation.
You think?
That's his MO right there.
Yep.
Now, on April the 29th, Bonin encountered a 19-year-old. His name was Darren Kendrick at his workplace in Stanton. And that's when Bonin lured Kendrick into the van for selling him some drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And Bonin then drove to Vernon Butts' apartment in Lakewood. There, he asked Kendrick if he was gay. And Kendrick attempted to leave.
Yeah.
He was wanting out of there.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
That's when
kind of figure what was coming here.
Yeah, that's when Bill Bonin and Vernon Butts bound him, and Butts sodomized him.
These names.
And this point when Bill Bonin, he turned on the stereo and raised the volume up.
Yep.
He didn't want anybody to hear Darren Kendrick's
He
screams.
cranked up the radio.
Yeah. Butts then held Kendrick's mouth open, and that's when Bill poured chloral hydrate down his throat,
Good Lord.
causing him to have some chemical burns.
Yeah, nasty chemical burns.
Yes. Can't even imagine, man. But Kendrick was fighting these guys,
Yeah.
but stopped before complaining of dizziness, and Bonin then strangled him, and that's when Vernon Butts drove an ice pick into his ear.
Drove.
What'd I say?
Like with a hammer.
Yeah.
Dang.
And he fatally wounded him and cut his cervical spinal cord with it. And his body was discovered behind a warehouse close to the Artesia Freeway.
Man, that was rough. Later he would say, because he said, the kid was started complaining about being dizzy or whatever. He said later, and I'm not sure if this was when he was talking to Vonda or not, but later on he would say, well, that kid just started fading out, just kind of whimpering. I don't like raping some limp piece of meat. Damn, it's no fun if they don't let me know how it feels. Guess we gave him too much of that stuff. Next time, I figure we won't use as much. Anyway, I'd gotten my rocks off and the kid was getting boring. No fun anymore, so I strangled him.
Golly, man. He gets off on the torture part of it and the suffering of the victims.
Right, and he's admitted that at first it was just a sex thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as you see, as we're ramping up, it's turning. So there's still a sex thing going on, but then it started getting more into the other parts. And then as he probably gets near the end of the line, it was really the sex thing was the least part of it.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting off on the other parts. Like
Yeah.
I said, probably had got boring to him or something.
You got to have more and more to get his
Yeah.
fix.
Kind of like an addict, right?
Yeah.
A heroin addict or something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So on May the 12th, Bill Bonin abducted and murdered an acquaintance of his. He later stated that he decided to kill him when he had woken up that morning. It was a guy he knew because he was tired of having him around. And the body of his friend, it was 17-year-old Lawrence Sharp. It was discarded behind the Westminster gas station. And his body was found on the 18th. And an autopsy revealed that he'd been bound, sodomized, beaten, and strangled.
Yeah, and that tired of having him around was a quote.
Yeah.
That's what he said. That's why he killed him.
Just tired of having him around.
Man.
Yeah.
What a pal.
Yeah. Now, May the 19th, Bill Bonin asked Vernon Butts to go with him on a killing.
Right.
But Butts refused.
Yeah, he didn't want to go.
But Bill Bonin abducted a 14-year-old South Gate boy.
Wasn't going to keep him from having fun, was it?
No, he's going to go out. And this boy, his name was Sean King, and he lived in Downey. And King was strangled to death before his body was discarded in Eucapia. And Bonin then went back to Butts' apartment and bragged to him about the murder.
Yeah, you missed out, buddy.
Yeah, this is a
We
good
had
one.
a great time.
But by early 1980, Bill Bonin's murders, they were getting some media attention. And leading gay right activists to get involved. And they offered a reward totaling $50,000 for information leading to the conviction of the suspect or suspects.
Right.
And by this time, it was determined a definitive link between many of the recent murders, and investigators from the jurisdictions where the victims had been abducted or discovered had begun sharing this information.
Finally.
Yeah, they were telling some stuff. And there were 6 officers from the 3 jurisdictions. They formed a task force to solve these murders.
Yeah, well, finally, that's a good thing. You know, I'm sure that community was terrified, man. All these guys finding out, you know, plus think about Robert Kraft was doing the same thing, you know, down the road, and it was basically the same MO, you know.
Yeah, right in the same area.
Yeah.
So in May, Billy Ray Pugh, he had been arrested. This was the guy that he had taken from the party and was going to kill but didn't. He was arrested for auto theft. And on May the 28th, he overheard the details of an ongoing murders on the local radio broadcast. And he confided in a...
so he was in jail when he heard this?
Yeah, he confided in a counselor that he knew the perpetrator and the modus operandi, which was described to him by Bonin 2 months prior. He told him all this.
Right.
And this counselor reported Pugh's suspicion to the police, who in turn relayed this tip to the Los Angeles Police Department. And the sergeant there, his name was John St. John.
John St. John.
Yeah. And St. John conducted an extensive interview with Pugh the next day. But Pugh held back the fact that he had accompanied Bonin on one of these murders.
Yeah, he wanted to tell him all about Bonin, but he just leave out a little detail that I helped him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the information he provided led St. John to figure out that Bill Bonin might be the Freeway Killer.
Starting to think about it now.
Yeah. And that same day, Bill Bonin invited 18-year-old homeless drifter, his name was James Michael Monroe, who he'd encountered while just cruising for young male prostitutes. He invited him to move into his family home in exchange for sex.
Yeah, come on and hang out with me, my mom, dad, everybody.
Yeah, but Monroe was a runaway from St. Clair, Michigan, who had been evicted from his family's home in early 1980. And Monroe had gone to California to meet a friend, but became homeless after he was robbed of some money he had earned as a male prostitute. But while living there in Bill Bonin's home, Monroe, who was bisexual, began a consensual relationship with Bill Bonin.
Yeah.
And he accepted an offer of employment at the Dependable Drive-Away Company. This is the one Bill worked at.
So he's living with him and he's got him a job.
Yeah. And Monroe later described his initial impression of Bonin as being a good guy.
He's just a sweetheart.
Really normal. So on June the 1st, Bonin informed Monroe that he wanted them both to abduct, sexually assault, and murder a hitchhiker.
I wonder if he still thought he was a good guy after he told him that.
I don't know.
Hey, buddy.
But there was a police investigation into Bonin's background. It revealed a pretty extensive history of convictions for sexually assaulting teenage boys. And this Sergeant St. John assigned a surveillance team to go out and monitor Bill Bonin.
Yep.
And they began surveilling Bonin on the evening of June the 2nd. And 1 hour prior to Bill Bonin and Monroe discarding the body of Bonin's final victim, it was hours earlier, Bonin and Monroe encountered an 18-year-old. His name was Stephen J. Wells on the El Segundo Boulevard. Bonin and Monroe talked him into getting into the van. And according to the two guys, upon learning Wells was bisexual, Bonin had consensual sex with Wells before persuading him to go back to his parents' house.
Come on over.
Yeah. There the two continued having sex. And later, Bonin paid Wells $200 to allow him to be bound with a clothesline.
So if you let me tie you up with his clothesline, I'll give you $200.
Golly, man. And Wells, he got suspicious after that of their intentions. And he started to freak out a little bit.
I don't blame him.
And Bonin retreated to the kitchen, telling Monroe they were going to have to kill Wells.
Yeah, we're going to have to go in there and kill him now.
There, they gagged him and beat him in the hallway. And Wells was pleading for his life. But Bonin strangled him to death.
Right there in his mama's house.
And Bonin ordered Monroe to get a cardboard box, which they placed...
Yeah, it was in his brother's room. He told him to go to his brother's room and get a box, and they put his body in it.
Yeah, and they took it out to the van.
Yes.
Carried him out to the van, yeah. Now later, while driving to Butts' apartment, Bonin informed Monroe that he, Butts, and others had committed many of the Freeway Killer murders. And at the apartment, Bonin invited Butts to view Wells' body in the van.
Yeah, whenever I say, hey, we got it's in the van.
Yeah, look
Come
what
on out
I
and
got.
See it. You see it. He kept referring to it as it.
Yeah, and Bonin then asked him of where he should get rid of the body. And Monroe later testified in court that Butts dissuaded Bonin from discarding it in nearby canyons and recommended discarding it near a gas station.
That's weird, isn't it?
It is. They drove to a disused gas station in Huntington Beach and got rid of him there. And the body was discovered about 5 hours later.
That was quick.
There were two brothers that found him who had parked nearby.
Wow.
And Bonin and Monroe returned to Bonin's house. And later that night, Bonin hinted to Monroe, who was fearful for his life, that they should stay quiet regarding Wells' murder.
Right. You know, before you was talking about the surveillance or whatever, and they did start their surveillance, you know, when and they were sitting there when they got back. And
Yeah.
seen them come out and talking and go in the house. So they had just missed them bringing the body out in the box and all that. They had pulled up while they were gone, and then when they pulled in, they had already done everything. So they were that close to catch them in the act that day.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
So after 9 days of uneventful surveillance by this John St. John, the sergeant there, on June 11th, the plainclothes police, they observed Bonin driving around Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to lure 5 separate boys into his van.
Yeah, they seen all this happen.
Yeah. When they saw him, actually was able to get one in the van. And the police followed Bonin until he parked at a service station close to the Hollywood freeway.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sort of, I guess, discreetly approached the van.
Yeah, they did. They were waiting, and then they walked up, and, you know, it had that curtain between the driver compartment and the back of the van, but he said the curtain was open about 2 foot, so they could look from the front through the windshield to see what was going on in the back.
Yeah.
Or kind of could tell what was going on
Mm-hmm.
before they actually approached.
Yeah. And they got there, and they could hear screams and banging going around inside the van.
Mm-hmm. Started rocking.
And these officers, they forced their way inside the van. And they discovered Bill Bonin raping 17-year-old Orange County runaway. His name was Harold Eugene Tate, who he had handcuffed and bound.
He was the luckiest guy in the world that day.
Yeah. And Bonin was initially charged with the rape of a minor and held on suspicion of Miranda's murder. He was detained on a $250,000 bond. And later, Bonin's girlfriend, I guess this is the one he went roller skating with on Sundays.
I guess so. We don't hear much about her.
Yeah, she notified his boss of his arrest, but she told him that he was in connection to the Freeway Killer case.
Wow.
And that caused Monroe, who was already apprehensive in Bonin's absence from work that day. He got frantic. He got scared.
Right. He's like, what the hell?
And the next day, Monroe stole Bonin's car and fled back to Michigan.
Yeah, not the van, but his other car.
Yeah, and that's where he reportedly resided before getting arrested.
Yeah.
Now, inside Bonin's van, the investigators, they discovered a lot of stuff. Numerous artifacts which proved his culpability in the Freeway Killer murders. These included various restraining devices, knives, and a tire iron. They also noted the removed door handles.
Yes, sir.
And a forensic examination of the van and Bonin's home revealed extensive traces and bloodstains.
You think?
Yeah, and inside the glove box, the investigators, they discovered a scrapbook of sorts.
Yeah, because he
was-
liked to keep all the newspapers and newspaper clippings of everything to do with his murder.
Yes, he did. Now, although Bonin initially alleged, his innocence in all this, he said he didn't do it. But Bonin confessed his guilt to St. John, this sergeant, after reading a letter from Sean King's mother.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild that right here, right when he gets arrested, his dad dies of cirrhosis.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so his dad's passed away now. It was like 4 months after he first got picked up.
Yeah, so after he read this letter from Sean King's mother, she was just begging him to tell her where his, the location of his body.
Right.
And Bonin seemed to have a little bit of clarity on this. I don't know if he just come to terms with what he had done, but he made sure to clarify that it was not easy to ease the mother's pain.
Now, this letter was never written by his mother.
They just done that.
The letter was written by St. John.
Yeah.
And gave to him as that. And this information never came out until he died. St. John, years later when St. John passed away.
That's just brilliant, man.
Yeah, because he could have gotten in a lot of trouble for that.
Yeah.
And could have maybe possibly messed up the whole case. But it broke the case more or less anything, at the end. But it was just a big stepping out on a limb, I guess you should say. Yeah.
But he did get him to confess.
Yes.
But over the next several days, Bonin confessed to abducting, raping, and killing 21 young men and boys in graphic detail. He expressed no remorse for his actions, but showed extreme embarrassment and regret over being caught.
Oh, yeah.
And there was an Orange County investigator. He recalled that there was not a policeman in that room did not want to kill Bonin for his confession.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Bonin stated that his primary accomplice in the murders had been Vernon Butts, while Miley and Monroe were accomplices in other murders.
Right. And even talking about confessions, Marcus Grab is the one he stabbed like 77 times.
He was one from Germany, wasn't he?
Yeah. And a little quote from him from Bonin. He says, I tied him up with nylon, this electrician type of wire. I pulled a knife on him and he got scared. I stabbed him in the left arm. It surprised me that I did it. Then I stabbed him again and again and again and again and again until he was helpless. They would try to stop me from stabbing him. I would just stab him. I just stuck him with a knife in different places because I didn't know where to stab, I didn't know where all the vital organs were or anything like that. I was just stabbing.
Wow.
Didn't really know why I was doing it, just doing it. What the hell? Yeah. Violence.
Yeah, but Bonin was physically linked to many of the murders by bloodstains and semen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that van was slammed full of both.
Yeah, carpet fibers were found on the victims' bodies.
Yep, they matched the van, yeah.
They did. And furthermore, on 3 bodies, investigators found hair samples, which were a precise match to Bill Bonin.
Mm-hmm.
Medical evidence revealed that 6 of the murders for which he was charged were committed by a unique strangulation method.
Yeah, like because of the way he stuck the tire iron through the T-shirt and twisted it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was his signature trademark, the way he
Yes, it was.
Committed these murders, yeah. Now, based on Bonin's confession, police obtained a warrant authorizing a search of Vernon Butts and his Lakewood property on the same date as Bonin's initial arraignment. This was July the 25th, and a search uncovered evidence linking Vernon Butts to several murders which Bonin had already confessed to.
Mm.
And Butts was brought before a municipal court on July the 29th and charged with accompanying Bill Bonin on 6 murders and 3 counts of robbery.
So a search of Butts reveals information.
Now, Butts rejected an offer to plead guilty on all charges filed against him in exchange for life sentence with a minimum of 25 years with the possibility of parole. And he did not accept any form of plea bargain or to testify against Bonin. He was brought before an Orange County Municipal Court judge on November the 14th, 1980, where he was formally charged with participating in 3 further murders committed in the county. And his trial was scheduled on July the 27th of 1981. Now, on July 31st, 1980, Monroe was arrested in his hometown in Michigan. He was the one that took the car back to Michigan.
Right.
He was extradited back to California and charged with Wells murder, and he pleaded innocent to all charges against him on August 14th. And Miley, who was in Texas, discussed his role in the Miranda and McCobb murders on a recorded phone call. And this was a conversation he was having with a friend, and he was talking about Bonin's earlier confession. Now, on August the 22nd, Miley was arrested and charged by California authorities with the murders of Miranda and McCobb. And on December the 18th, he pled not guilty to 2 charges of first-degree murder. But 2 pretrial hearings on May 1981, he pleaded guilty.
Crazy.
Yeah. On January the 7th, 1981, Vernon Butts was arraigned on 5 counts of murder, Dale, and 3 counts of robbery. And by this point, he had been listed as an accomplice in the murders of Lundgren, Shelton, Grabs, Hayden, Murillo, Wyrostek, and Kendrick, and Wells.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
A bunch of them.
And the November 1979 Jane Doe. And 4 days after his formal plea, he committed suicide by hanging himself with a towel in his cell.
And this really upset everybody because he was supposed to be their star witness because he was going to
testify against
him. Yeah, at least he had said he would.
Yeah.
Even though before he said that, he didn't want to do that, but I think he had said he was going to do it and he was going to be their star witness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But he had attempted suicide at least 4 times prior to his arrest.
Right. Yeah, and in other parts of his life, before all this.
Mm-hmm. And his attorney, Joe Ingber, I think that's how you say his name, theorized that his depression and the state of depression had been magnified by the impending release of transcripts of his client's testimony at the preliminary hearings, in which Butts had graphically described his victim's torture, and he was worried about the effect it would have on his friends and family.
Yeah, so he's killed himself.
Yeah, the suicide rendered Butts' recorded testimony in 3 cases inadmissible as evidence.
Right.
Yeah, and the charges against Bill Bonin in relation to Shelton and Wyrostek and the John Doe were therefore dropped in early 1981. But nonetheless, physical evidence was still present in the case of Darren Kendrick.
Yeah, they lose a lot of information here because he kills himself and can't, come in and corroborate, but they still have a ton on him, so it's not like he's getting out or anything.
He's not getting charged with all of them, but he's got enough to be able to put him away.
Right.
But both Miley and Monroe agreed to testify against Bonin in court in exchange for being spared the death penalty and the dismissal of additional charges of sodomy robbery filed against Monroe. And in the case of Miley, Norris agreed to accept 2 separate pleas of guilty to first-degree murder. This was in exchange for 2 concurrent sentences of life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years, if Miley agreed to testify against Bonin at some upcoming trials. But this Billy Ray Pugh also agreed to testify, having pleaded guilty to 1 count of voluntary manslaughter, for which he later received 6 years in prison.
Right. Well, and that don't seem like a lot, but if it wouldn't be for him, they wouldn't have caught him.
That's right.
Or at least not yet.
That's right.
Because he's the one who's in jail thinking, I got to get away out of here, and then wait, I know this guy. So he basically threw him on the bus to get himself out, which is good.
Yeah.
For the overall thing.
But on October the 19th, Bill Bonin was brought to trial in Los Angeles County and charged with the murder of 12 of his victims. But at the end of the trial, the closing arguments were in late December, and it was described Bonin as someone who derived extreme pleasure from his victims, like we talked about. He was suffering and that he acted with malice and forethought. And they outlined the torture of Bonin's victims, all they had endured before concluding in the closing arguments that give him what he earned.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were wanting the death penalty.
They wanted it bad, yeah.
So on December the 28th, the jury began their formal deliberations. And on January the 6th, 1982, they convicted Bill Bonin of 10 counts of murder for which he was tried. The jury found that the special circumstances required within California state law had been met in the cases for which Bill Bonin was found guilty, and thus unanimously recommended that he did receive the death penalty.
That's right.
That's what they were wanting. That's what he got.
Yep.
But Bonin was cleared of Sean King's sodomy and murder because he had led police to King's body and they had given him that note.
Right.
Yeah.
So they let him off of that one.
They did, yeah.
Because we'll tell you where he's at, but it's still
Okay, now in February, the attorneys argued against the imposition of the death verdict.
Right,
They
from the jury.
Yes, and despite his, this appeal, the attorneys formally sentenced Bill Bonin to death for the 10 murders.
Right.
And ordered that if his death penalty sentence were commuted to 1 life imprisonment, the sentences should run consecutively.
Right. So he ain't never getting out. If they commute his death sentence, all these are going to run consecutively.
Either way, he's not getting out.
So he's not getting out.
Yeah.
Right.
But Bill Bonin was then ordered to await his execution via the gas chamber at San Quentin Prison.
Right. Because you know how California is like, death penalty's good, death penalty's bad, death penalty's good, death penalty's,
back and forth, back and forth.
That's kind of how Manson got away for it, got around the death penalty.
Yeah, but as he was leaving, Bill Bonin remained unmoved upon hearing the sentences.
Yeah,
he just,
he's dead inside anyway.
Yeah. But Bill Bonin did go through several other trials of, robbery and murder of 4 further victims whose bodies have been found.
Well, he's putting them in all different counties and picking them up in all different counties. So, everybody's trying to get their piece of the pie too.
Yes.
Yeah. So he gets trialed in different counties and different times for basically all the same thing for different people.
Yep, that's right. So either way, Bill Bonin's not getting out.
No,
he's on death row at San Quentin.
yes,
Now, in his years on death row, Bill Bonin, he undertook some hobbies.
yeah.
He started.
What else is he gonna do?
Yeah, really. He started painting and writing, and he wrote a series of short stories called Doing Time, stories from the mind of a death row prisoner, and he became friends with convicted murderers, Lawrence Bittaker, Randy Kraft, who Randy Kraft also had the nickname the Freeway Killer.
Yeah,
That's the one we did a while back.
right.
Yeah. And he also friends with Douglas Clark and Jimmy Lee Smith.
So all these killers are all sitting around playing cards and having a good old time.
Yeah, reminiscing, I guess. Man, can you imagine sitting there at that table?
No.
He also corresponded with a number of individuals, including mothers of some of his victims. And to the mothers, he never expressed regret or remorse for the murders. And he held information back from them that they were trying to get. He wouldn't tell them anything.
Yeah. Now, I even told the mother of Sean King that her son had been one of his favorite victims because he was just such a screamer.
Man, this guy was bad news, man.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Woo.
But Bill Bonin, he later told his defense attorneys and several people with whom he had corresponded that Vernon Butts had been the actual ringleader behind the murders.
Right.
And that he had simply been Butts' accomplice.
Yeah. He's just trying to get out of the death penalty.
Yeah.
You remember, he's a smart dude. So now he's working angles now.
Trying to
That's
get
all
out
he's
of
got
it.
left. Especially Butts is dead, so how's he gonna, he can't, argue against it.
But these claims would be refuted by the prosecutor.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
they know. They
Yeah.
know what's up.
Yeah. And Bonin was scheduled to be executed by lethal injection in 1992, following the execution of Robert Alton Harris. He was the first inmate California had executed since 1967.
Right. And this is in 92.
And Harris had shown symptoms of discomfort, including convulsions, up to 4 minutes.
Four whole minutes?
Yeah, throughout his 15 minutes in the gas chamber.
Man.
As such, the state of California opted to use lethal injection as an alternative execution method.
Yeah, because it's not as cruel and unusual as as a gas chamber. And that just chaps my ass right there.
Yeah.
The stuff these dudes put these kids through, and then they worried about convulsions for 4 minutes. That poor man.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure these...
I know this guy ain't Bonin, but still, I don't know what he did, but that kind of, it's cruel and unusual. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Bring back public hanging. How about that?
Yeah, bring it on. But over the years, Bill Bonin filed numerous appeals to try to get out of his death penalty, but nothing held up, dude.
No.
Nothing stuck, so he
can have more appeals than Orange.
Yep. Now, on February the 20th, 1996, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rejected Bonin's plea for clemency on the grounds of inadequate legal representation on both trials. Yeah, so he still wasn't getting out of it.
He's still working angles.
Now, Bill Bonin was executed by lethal injection inside the gas chamber at San Quentin Prison on February the 23rd. This was 14 years after his first death sentence had been imposed, Dale. And he was the first person to be executed by lethal injection in the history of California.
That's kind of ironic that they did put him in the gas chamber anyway.
Yeah, he did go to the gas chamber.
Yeah, even though they didn't use it.
Yeah.
Just for the room.
In his final interview given to a local radio station, this was less than 24 hours before his death, Bonin said that he had made peace with the fact that he was about to die, adding that the only major regret in life is that he had not pursued his teenage passion of bowling.
He was good at it.
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
Well, speaking of regrets, we mentioned Vonda Pelto earlier, and she said that she was she was put in that situation in the prison after Butts killed himself. So she was kind of put in there to kind of keep the other ones from killing herself as a psychologist, more or less. But anyway, she had an office inside, and she said that she was talking to Bonin one day and asked him, about killing these people and if he felt anything while killing these people. And he's like, no, not really. Didn't feel nothing. Said, you mean like kill an animal? Oh, no. I feel a lot for an animal. I wouldn't do that. and says, "Well, do you have any regrets or anything?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "You know, I killed 2 a couple different times." He said, "But my regret is that I never killed 3 in one day."
Wow.
That was his big regret.
What the heck, man?
That was his big regret.
3 in one day. That was his goal.
Yeah, he was upset that never happened.
But Bill Bonin, through all this, he denied responsibility for his actions, saying that he had no control over his actions. He also said that he would not be able to live a normal life outside of prison.
I get that.
But just another little side note, he ordered his last meal before his execution, and it was 2 large pizzas, 3 pints of ice cream, and 3 6-packs of Coca-Cola.
Well, I'm surprised he didn't get a burger. You know, he was a big cheeseburger guy.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he figured it'd take him a lot longer to eat all that.
Yeah. But his attorney said that he had not detected any remorse in Bill Bonin.
He didn't have any.
No, he didn't show any remorse at all.
Well, like we said, I mean, and I'm not taking that for the guy because I know he's a piece of trash, but did he ever have a chance in his whole life?
No.
That's all he knew.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I ain't taking up for him, but damn, he never had a chance either.
Yeah. And Bill Bonin was pronounced dead at 12:13 a.m., and he was 49 years old, and none of his relatives chose to witness his execution.
No.
Although the event was witnessed by several of the relatives of his victims.
Yeah, and then at least one victim that lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And according to several witnesses, Bonin's execution passed without any complications, and he was heavily sedated throughout the later stages of the procedure.
Mm.
And talking about this, the governor at the time, Pete Wilson, who had rejected a submitted plea for clemency from Bonin's attorney 3 days later before the execution, called Bonin the poster boy for capital punishment.
Well, if there's anybody who deserved it, it's damn sure him.
Yeah, absolutely. But Bonin's family, they refused to claim his remains. And following his execution, his remains were cremated in a private ceremony with none of his family members present.
Wow.
And his ashes were later scattered over the Pacific Ocean. But you know, we're talking about that one kid that got away, David McVicker. We talked about him in part 1,
Mm-hmm.
who witnessed Bonin's execution. He was there. He actually went.
Yeah.
He was traumatized by his ordeal for several years.
Oh, yeah.
And was haunted by nightmares on a nightly basis. And he dropped out of high school and became dependent on drugs and alcohol.
What do you think what the psychological effect any of this stuff would have on you, man?
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible.
Yep. And he described the execution as being a symbolic closure.
Well, it puts your nightmare to sleep, you know, because, you know, he was the one who was attacked, and then later's like, wait, this sounds like the guy who's attacking me when he heard the news later on, but he said that guy's in jail. He's not out doing nothing. And then he found out he actually was not in jail, and he was actually the one doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy was also a big part of him getting arrested, because he's like, listen, this sounds just like Bill Bonin. You got to...
And one of Bill Bonin's accomplices, Monroe, he was sentenced to a term of 15 years to life for the second-degree murder of Wales in 1981. And he repeatedly appealed the sentence, claiming that he had not known Bonin as the Freeway Killer until after Wales' murder, and that he'd been tricked into accepting a plea bargain on his case.
Oh, well.
And the other accomplice, Miley, was sentenced to a term of 25 years to life for first-degree murder of Miranda in 1982. And he was informed he would need to serve a minimum of 16 years and 8 months before he could be considered for parole. But while he was incarcerated, he frequently was reprimanded for violating prison rules. He was later sentenced to a concurrent term of 25 years to life for the abduction of Macabre.
So they added on to him.
Yeah. Now, May the 25th, 2016, Miley died of injuries he had sustained 2 days previously when he was attacked by another inmate in the exercise yard at Mule Creek State Prison.
Oh. Is this the dude that the guy was scared to death he was getting out?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And Billy Ray Pugh was sentenced to 6 years in prison for voluntary manslaughter of Harry Turner in 1982. He had been initially charged with first-degree murder of Turner, in addition to companion charges of robbery and sodomy. However, after 5 days of deliberation, the jury found Pugh guilty of the reduced charge of manslaughter and innocent of robbery and sodomy. And he served less than 4 years of his sentence and was released from prison in 1985.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we know in Bonin, I mean, he killed at least 21 people in 10 months.
Yes.
I mean, this dude never slowed down.
Mm-mm.
There was no take a break, no nothing. I mean, you know, we have some have lots of, you know, victim stuff, but this goes on for long periods of time. But this guy was wide open.
Especially you kill one, then
I'm still horny, and let's go get
yeah,
another
let's go get another one.
Yeah.
That's all he was wanting to do, man.
Sick.
Yeah. Yeah, this is probably one of the worst ones we've done, man.
Yeah. These two, man, him and Randy Kraft, I mean, and it going on at the same time in the same general area, killing the same type of folks. I mean, young men.
Yeah.
All in this one area. I mean, that community had to be terrified, dude.
Yeah.
It was just unreal.
Especially the gay community.
Yeah.
But Randy Kraft, you know, that's what he was picking up.
Yeah. Both of them. That's what I mean. Yeah, in the same little community there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awful.
Mm-hmm. Can't imagine, man.
Woo.
But anyway, dude, that is the story of Bill Bonin, the Freeway Killer.
The Freeway Killer.
Yeah, he's bad news, man.
Seriously.
Yeah, a lot of death and mayhem. All right, dude, we're gonna get out of here, man.
All right, let's roll.
We want everyone to be safe. Please be careful and always be aware of your surroundings.
Because the next episode could be about you.
This is the Crack House Chronicles.